ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Namaste, ma'am. Welcome to everyone on the fourth day of the workshop on Introduction to Traditional Knowledge and Intellectual Property, People's Rights. Please, ma'am, I request ma'am to lead the session. Astu.
Thank you. Namaste, Piyush. Namaste to everyone. A very good evening. So again, this is the fourth day of this very important workshop on traditional knowledge, intellectual property rights, and people's rights. So the last 3 days, you have heard about very different aspects. On the first day, we covered traditional knowledge, the expanse and significance of it. On the second day, we gave a general overview of all the different intellectual property rights and how can one secure such rights when we invent something or even our creative ideas on that matter. Yesterday, you heard a lot about traditional knowledge, what is defensive protection, what is positive protection. And especially when we are talking of traditional knowledge, we also told that some of our knowledge, that is the oral traditional knowledge, belongs to communities or individuals who own it. So in this context, it cannot be treated as any other traditional knowledge that is part of a text that is already there in public domain. We have to treat that matter with great sensitivity and respect to the community holders, such that such information does not become a prior art and become a deterrent to their own livelihoods. So, a kind of the components of the positive protection of traditional knowledge is what we would be addressing today. And my colleague, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Asthana, will be talking to you about how we need to work and handle traditional knowledge, especially the ethical aspects. So, once again, a very warm evening to all of you. Thanks so much for being with us through this workshop. And I now request Vijay Lakshmi to start the presentation.
Namaskar to everyone. So in a way, I will start off from where I left off yesterday. So I'm just sharing my presentation. I hope everyone is able to hear me and see the presentation.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. So yesterday, as Dr. Satyagiri mentioned, we spoke about the protection of traditional knowledge, the positive and the defensive protection part. What we will be talking about today is handling and working with traditional knowledge, ethical aspects. Okay, so I will tell you more or less about how you work with traditional knowledge, documentation, dissemination, sharing, so on and so forth, and the ethical aspects behind it, especially since what is majorly involved here is rights of people. Okay, the people's rights part. The workshop title itself, we mentioned that is this traditional knowledge, intellectual property rights, and people's rights. So this focus of this particular presentation will be on those people's rights. Okay. So first of all, we will have to understand what is the knowledge, traditional knowledge that we are talking about in the current context. Okay. So we heard about a lot of traditional knowledge yesterday. We spoke about the codified knowledge, that is knowledge which is present in texts and manuscripts, also the oral traditional knowledge. Here, what we are going to talk about today, which is relevant to the current discussion, is the undisclosed traditional knowledge. Okay? Undisclosed traditional knowledge, why? Because this is the sensitive area. This is the area where this knowledge belongs to a family, it could belong to a person, it could belong to a community, it could belong to a certain village, anyone. But this knowledge perhaps is in the sole custody of that particular group or individual. this knowledge remains within the confines. So it could be secret, it could be non-codified, it may not be accessible to any external third party. Okay, so that is what I meant by within confines of the particular community. So what we will talk about today is oral knowledge, tribal knowledge, folk knowledge, which rests with individual families, communities. Another aspect that we will also include here today is manuscripts. Now, this is a part of the codified knowledge. You may ask me why we are including codified knowledge here. Many of the rare manuscripts in India, or even manuscripts which are written in certain languages which most of us don't understand, they are in a way this kind of secret confidential information, because where maybe there is a single copy somewhere which is with a repository, maybe a governmental or non-governmental organization, it could be with a person, it could be with a community, but it is still unaccessible to others, and also it is in a language maybe not understood by any other person, probably understood by the community themselves. And the importance of all this information that we are discussing here today is that so much information is there in India, and it is all dying. We are losing a lot of the information, not just because people no longer want to pursue it. The generation that is coming now probably is looking for other avenues. They do not want to follow what their forefathers did. In that way, we are losing the traditional know-hows and the way people do certain traditional practices, create artifacts. All that knowledge is going. And the other thing is, we are also losing the expertise of languages. So people no longer understand certain dialects, they no longer understand certain languages, and wherein the texts are there, information is there, but no longer able to read it or understand it or communicate it to any other person. The other important aspect of the talk today will be who are the stakeholders who are involved. That is, when I'm talking about this traditional knowledge, who are the likely people that we will be discussing today? So I have put a few names here just to say that this is distinguishable. So we have knowledge creators. So now people who have created that knowledge, maybe it's a kind of an innovation of what several generations have already had. So in that manner, it would be a creation of knowledge. So that person will be a knowledge creator. There will be knowledge practitioners. The knowledge is known over centuries, over a period of time, and they practice that knowledge. That they are knowledge practitioners. They may be knowledge owners. Okay, they may have got the knowledge through as hereditary uh, from their forefathers, or they may have got it from someone, they heard it from someone, but currently they are the custodians of the information. So owners and custodians. Similarly, holders. These are all similar people with similar responsibilities and roles in the realm of traditional knowledge. The other person that is involved here are intermediaries. Okay, often it so happens that there is one person who leads the person who is collecting the information and the person who actually holds the knowledge. Such people will be intermediaries, though they may not be by themselves practitioners, but they have an important role in getting that information collected, compiled, or recorded. Okay, so these are the different kind of stakeholders that we'll be speaking about today. This is for your understanding, the first slide. Then I will also, in the background, I am putting all these things because all these things will be important to the discussion that we will have further in the ongoing slides. So some of this I already mentioned yesterday. So there are national and international provisions for protection of traditional knowledge. These are the aspects which we'll be talking about today when we are talking about how to collect and how to protect not only the traditional knowledge, but the rights of the traditional knowledge holders. So what are the important aspects here? Two important aspects. One is the prior informed consent. Prior informed consent means when you're collecting the information, you're taking consent. I also explained to you what that consent means. It is not merely asking them yes or no whether you want to share the information. It is detailed acknowledgement of the content of that particular consent. Okay? So that I'll explain to you when I'm going in the following slide. These are some of the things that have come from the Convention of Biological Diversity as well as the Nagoya Protocol. The primary objective of the CBD was conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits which arises out of the utilization of genetic resources. That is, access of those genetic resources from whosoever you may be taking from a or the origin may be the country, it may be a repository, it may be people, all those things. So this is appropriate access and appropriate usage and giving back to the person from whom you have taken. Similarly, the Nagoya Protocol, which falls under the CPD, also talks about prior informed consent and involvement of the indigenous and local communities in case of access to genetic resources. We also spoke about the Biological Diversity Act. This also comes under, in a way, it comes from the CBD. So we have provisions in the Biological Diversity Act also, which relate to the current matter, subject matter, which we are talking about today. So when I told you about the National Biodiversity Authority yesterday, below the National Biodiversity Authority at the state level, there is something called State Biodiversity Authority. Within the state biodiversity authorities, we are talking about compiling and collection of information at very local levels. That is at the level of panchayat and villages. So the collection or the people or the authority has to go at a very, very basic level. So when we're talking about state biodiversity authorities, below them we have the biodiversity management committees, which are the basic committees which take any decision relating to use of biological resources and knowledge associated with resources. So under the biological diversity law, we have provisions where you have to take certain permissions or register or do certain things when you either access their biological resources or when you make use of it for obtaining some intellectual property rights. Okay, so this is the biodiversity management committee, which prepares that people's biodiversity register, which I spoke about yesterday, in consultation with local people and communities. Okay. Also, the Biodiversity Authority, through the Biological Diversity Act, also decides the quantum of benefits when we talk about the access and benefit sharing, where the quantum of benefits, there is a formula, and based on a case-to-case basis, the authority decides how to share the benefits in case there is a commercially viable invention that uses genetic resources from a community. Okay. Just to remind you, the Patents Act also has provisions with relation to you cannot patent traditional knowledge. Also, it has a disclosure requirement. Additional thing that I wanted to talk about the disclosure requirement is that in case you have not made the disclosure, that is, you're using a particular biological resource in your patent, that is, actually you have used that material for the invention, then this is a ground for opposition in the Patent Act. Also pre-grant opposition, also post-grant opposition. So post-grant opposition will mean that your patent can also get revoked, and this is a ground. Although this has not been used so far, and we don't have really any examples wherein a disclosure requirement has resulted in revocation, but this is just a provision that you must know, because when your ethical handling is one thing, that is, you are doing the right or wrong with respect to the people's rights. But along with ethical handling, you also have to understand, you have to follow all the statutory provisions that are existing if you want to do the correct way of documenting, disseminating, or using the particular associate traditional knowledge or the genetic resource. So an overview of the provisions that are there in the Biological Diversity Act. Currently, very, very recently, that is, as of this month is only, the Biological Diversity Act has been amended. Okay. Some minor provisions, minor differences are there, or I would say, to some extent major in the sense. Earlier, there was a provision that any kind of breach of the provisions of Biological Diversity Act could result in penal provisions. Now it has been decriminalized. So what you would be doing is paying a fine in case you do not adhere to the provisions of the Biological Diversity Act. Besides that, some flexibility has been given to the practitioners of traditional medicine, like the Veds, the Unani Hakim, and the Amchis of Suvarikpa. So where these people are going to use the biological resource and as well as the associate traditional knowledge, all they have to give is information to the this, and they are not bound by requiring approval from the National Biodiversity Authority. Although any foreign company which wants to take a patent or wants to access biological resources will have to take permission from the National Biodiversity Authority, and when they commercialize it, they will have to sign an agreement with them all those provisions remain the same for the foreign entities, but for Indian entities, there has been some sort of relaxation. So you need registration or approval by signing the ABS agreement whenever you're obtaining a biological resource, transferring results of research related to biological resource, or applying for intellectual property rights in or outside India for an invention based on biological resource. Okay, so these are important aspects you must remember as statutory provisions related to accessing and use of genetic resources as well as associated traditional knowledge. Okay, so you will also be subject to the equitable benefit sharing formula, which is applied by the National Biodiversity Authority. Now, this can be monetary, non-monetary, and the formula is decided on a case-to-case basis. What is non-monetary and what is monetary, I'll be explaining in the later slide, right? Now, you may also ask why this sudden interest or why this importance of, that a traditional knowledge digital library has taken up on how to document oral traditional knowledge. I also mentioned to you yesterday that we have a committee which is looking into how to ethically handle and document and disseminate traditional knowledge. The 2016 National IPR policy mandates the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library to document oral traditional knowledge, taking care that the integrity of the said knowledge is preserved and traditional ways of lives of communities are not compromised. So this is where the people's right comes into existence. We have to remember that these are traditional practices associated with their the communities, in the sense it has a spiritual connection, it has a social connection, it may have an economical connection. There are so many things that are related to the particular group of people or individual, and hence whenever there is documentation, this is one aspect, but other than documentation, all the other aspects related to traditional knowledge need very sensitive handling of the subject matter. Okay, so I will start with what are the concerns in handling of oral traditional knowledge. Okay? Oral traditional knowledge here, and I have written oral traditional knowledge, but we may also include the manuscripts I mentioned to you, the rare manuscripts where the people who have it are the only people who know about it. Okay, more or less like secret, undisclosed knowledge. Right. Most important thing here to remember is that we have no legal framework to protect oral traditional knowledge. Okay, both biological and non-biological, but especially non-biological. And other things are, since there is no legal framework, there are no SOPs in place. How to collect the information, how to keep the information, what we are supposed to do to maintain the integrity of the people's right, how we can support them, how we should have, in the first place, retain that knowledge, or how we should have taken prior informed consent. There are no formats or procedures which are standard throughout the country. There are some global best practices, although, but such things have been implemented in a localized fashion in the particular places. So as far as India is concerned, we don't have that. And why that lack of it is important? Because documentation of traditional knowledge is widespread in India. Okay, many governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, even university students. I heard yesterday that people have, recorded some sort of traditional knowledge from people. So that kind of information is being collected day in and day out. The problem is there is no awareness as to how this information should have been collected from the traditional knowledge holder, and that a consent should have been taken in the first place. Okay, this is a very big lacuna here. And knowingly or unknowingly, there may be indifference to the empowerment of knowledge holders and their right to sustain livelihood. Okay, the moment you take that knowledge from someone, document it and publish it. Okay, now till yesterday the knowledge was with the knowledge holder. He was the only person who knew about it. He had a sustained livelihood from that. Okay, he was earning money, he had economic benefit from it. The person who took it from him published it. Now once it is published, now it became public domain knowledge. Okay, that person who was the holder of the knowledge now no longer has that, that single domain over that information. So he no longer has a sustained livelihood. Maybe some company took it up, they started manufacturing it on large scale. Now this person whose knowledge solely was in the beginning no longer has any benefit from it. Okay, this is a very big risk that is associated with improper handling of traditional knowledge. There is low awareness of PIC and ABS norms. This leads to exploitation and misappropriation. Then another thing is, even though the person may consent to share the information and tell you that you may publish the information, there is often the problem of not giving due acknowledgement to the person. Okay, so giving credit and indicating that the person has contributed to it is also very important. So these are all the concerns that are there. Then another thing is, although we mentioned yesterday that traditional knowledge, when it is protected through IPR, has the problem of having a limited period of protection. But even then, if the knowledge holder is interested and would like to have a benefit out of it through an IPR, that is possible only if that knowledge remains, secret. So, sharing and dissemination without consideration of whether it is potential IPR is also a concern. And then research, validation, commercial utilization, all these things are rampant nowadays. People take information from knowledge holders, from these innocent people tribals who, unknowingly or knowingly, they don't know what use they're going to put it to, and they give that information to you in good faith. But using it for commercial benefits, but not giving anything back to them, that's also a very major concern. Okay, so I have just spelled out what is the risk associated with because of improper handling of TK. Although this came up in the previous slide, we must understand, if you don't handle TK properly, what are the things that are likely to happen? You will be jeopardizing the rights of the rights holders because you have put the unpublished knowledge into public domain and depriving them of their livelihood. Okay? They also no longer have control over their knowledge and they won't be able to safeguard their own rights. So, and another thing is, you, by giving that information to other people, have opened the ground for misappropriation and biopiracy of the particular traditional knowledge, right? So what I will do in the next few slides is to tell you how we can handle a traditional knowledge in the right manner, okay? The ethical considerations. The ethical considerations, now by ethics, what do we understand? Are we doing the thing rightly, okay? So if you are wrong, it is unethical. If you're doing something in the right manner, that will be an ethical way of doing the particular thing. So when we are talking about handling of traditional knowledge, there are some key considerations. Because traditional knowledge, you can do several things with traditional knowledge. You either access it, documentation in the sense you can publish it, or you can do R&D with it, you can do other things with it. So we have sort of taken the kind of things that you can do with traditional knowledge and to tell you how to do it correctly. Okay. So when you are accessing and documenting traditional knowledge, what do you have to remember? Remember that this is the ownership of a traditional knowledge holder. Now, traditional knowledge is not associated, it's not simply knowledge, okay? There are many aspects associated with it. For example, if it is a community, it is their spiritual and cultural identity. Okay? We as an outsider may not understand the spiritual and cultural identity. We may take it as simply knowledge, but that is not true. So you have to understand, which is why all these information, whenever you collect from the person, you have to understand the ethos of the particular community, and that is why you explain to them what you're collecting it for and allow them to share with you what is the the spiritual connotation of the information that they're sharing. So you have to respect the privacy, freedom, moral rights, and right to sustainable livelihood of the knowledge holders, and ensure participatory consultative process. Okay, why participatory consultative process? You may go to one person, but when it is community knowledge, there'll be a lot of people who are practicing that particular traditional knowledge. Some communities have leaders, some may not have. So everybody is on an equal footing. Talk to everyone, understand from everyone who is the person that you need to take the permission from, and allow everyone to speak. This is a way of building trust. You call everyone, have a community meeting. So this builds trust from the people, and it will allow you to explain your position. So it will allow them also to create that confidence in you that you are going to use that information for the right purposes and you will not be cheating them out of their knowledge. Okay. So all the modalities should be with explicit express consent. And the modality of how you're recording the information, what you're going to use it for. State all that explicitly, and then have a consultative participatory processes. Also take collective views. Why? Because one person may say something else, another person may say something else. So when you are taking, see, there is no validation in this process. What you're doing is collecting the information. Okay. There may be slight variations among people. There may be duplication. Talk to different people. Okay. So that will help you in understanding and compiling the information in a more appropriate manner. Also, when you're going to record such information, record it comprehensively. Often when you go to record, you'll go to remote places. Okay. So you can't keep going there again and again. Today you went, you collected 10 sets of information, you forgot something. Can't go back there and do it again. Also, that loss of information may be very critical to the compilation of the information. So remember what all you want to collect and have a comprehensive information collection like geographical profile of the location, of the people, of the community, local population, ecological, economic. All these data should be collected simultaneously so that you have all the information to piece together. Also listen to the knowledge holders. While building trust, they will also tell you what they are apprehensive about. And never think that to collect information is easy. Okay, there'll be several people who are suspicious of your motive, will never share information with you. That is why I'm saying you have to build the trust first. Okay. Now, whether the person wants to share it or no, it is the onus is on the knowledge holder. Often they would like to share, but very often they do not also want to share. And the point here will be to build the trust, to explain to them and convince them that this information will be put to good use. We all understand the traditional knowledge, if it's with a community, with a person for some time, and that community or person doesn't no longer exist, then we are unable to preserve that information. So in case the community is sharing the information with you only for preservation purposes, they don't want you to put to any use later on, that is also a consideration you can take. But you will have to respect the wishes of the community. Okay. Record the information. That's also very important. Writing, if you have taken it in return others, you will have to have signature or a thumb impression or whatever to say that you have ethically recorded it. This is the most important part. Or the best way is to put it in audio video mode so that you have the person, so you have everything with you, right? Another important aspect of recording or the traditional knowledge handling is research and development. So often what we do is, while we take and document the information, we may publish that information, and also research and development is another important aspect. Research and development also plan activities only after you have taken express consent from the knowledge holder. Okay. Priority for you should be to address the unaddressed problems of the community. So say it is a drug, herbal formulation that they have information of. Okay, you take the information and do certain things and create a medicinal dish, or if they have a particular problem associated with it, look at what you can do for the community first. This is in the ethical sense that I am saying. So if you're able to do that, it would be very good. Then avoid contradictions with traditional beliefs and the traditions of that. So if there are any contradictory results, please discuss with them beforehand. So in case they don't want you to go ahead with the research for those specific reasons, then you will have to again respect their wishes. Okay. Then you include them in the research. Have a partnership, have a collaboration, have cooperation. Each step of the way when you are doing the research, talk to them, tell them how you are doing it. Maybe they will be able to give you ideas. Okay. Because it is an age-old belief, tradition, and whatever they have been doing, they have been doing. So they have insights, okay, because of practicing that particular traditional knowledge, and that insight will be useful for your research. So keep talking to them. If possible, share all the information on the research, including publications, and preferably in local languages. Okay, a lot of them, if you are going to publish in English, that community will not understand that English. So if you want to genuinely share that information with them, it should be in local language. Okay. Then whenever you're using genetic resources from them, now we all understand that use of genetic resources, the major danger is that the ecologically destroying that particular genetic resource from that place, especially plants. We have heard over exploitation causes complete loss of the genetic resource it has happened in so many parts of India. So what we have to focus on is sustainable use of the genetic resource. So in case you're accessing biological resources, have a material transfer agreement with them. Because even the Forest Act, when you have tribals living in a particular area, the genetic resource or the cultivation is all associated with them. So you need to speak to them, understand, have material transfer agreements. If you're going to take the genetic resource from them, all these should be written properly and agreed upon. And you must follow all laws and procedures in research. For instance, if you're doing research, if you need permission from the National Biodiversity Authority, if you need to share information with the Indian Patent Office, do it. Otherwise, this is neither ethical way of performing the research nor legal way of performing the research. So both of these conditions have to be satisfied. Do you commercialize it? Ensure the benefits are shared, monetary or non-monetary. Monetary, how? You will have a certain percentage which you will share with the community. Or non-monetarily, what you can do, you can use it for the social benefit. Like you can build schools, colleges for them. You can have educational programs. You can have other, social benefits. Like create a hospital facility for them through the money that is being this. Whatever the need is and whatever the community agrees with, it may be monetary or it may be non-monetary. Okay. The other thing I wanted to speak about is dissemination of information. Dissemination would include publication of the articles. For most of us, what do? We take information from the knowledge holders, practitioners, and immediately create a paper, send it to a publisher, and get the paper published. Okay, we have several journals which publish traditional knowledge. May not be purely traditional knowledge. It could also be validation. It could be many other things associated with the traditional knowledge. Now, in case of dissemination of information of this sort, what would be ethical that the publisher or the person who, the host who is hosting the particular site or website where you are publishing this information should require mandatory prior informed consent when you are submitting the manuscript for publication. That would be the ethical way of doing it. Why? Because unless you acknowledge that you have taken the permission from the person and you share the particular document, the publisher or the website host is unlikely to know this. Okay, so this should be mandatory so that you have ethical publication of information. Confidential secret information, please do not publish. Okay, it may be monetized through IP protection, and that should be in consultation with the knowledge holder. So do not publish information which the knowledge holder thinks is secret or confidential. It is not in your purview to do so. Another thing that you could do, considering the ethical way of handling information and dissemination of information, is include the knowledge holder as co-author, depending on the contribution. Or you may also acknowledge the person. See, journal article has several ways of acknowledging contributors. You may put them at the end of this as a note, a footnote, saying that this person helped me through this process or shared this information with me, because of which this research was possible or this information was possible. Or if the contribution is more and you think that you need to acknowledge the person as a co-author, you may include the person as a co-author. This has been done. I'll give you some examples later at the end of the presentation. So putting the knowledge holders as co-authors is a very common practice which is followed by National Innovation Foundation. Also, if you're going to use the disseminated information for further research, that is the article, it has to be with due consultative process with the knowledge holders. And here again, you need to respect moral rights. So if you're publishing it and in some way you're destroying the integrity of the work or the beliefs or the spiritual connotation that particular information has, that is not an ethical way of handling this information or sharing this information, right? The other thing, one more aspect of traditional knowledge handling is awareness and education. So we need to have more workshops and teaching modules where we are able to tell people how do you ethically handle traditional knowledge. One of the ways that we are doing today, having these 5-day workshop where we are explaining to you what is the right way of doing research and collecting information or transmitting information related to traditional knowledge. So more of such modules and more of such workshops are required, because we have found in the past and with our interaction with several stakeholders, this is common practice that the information is taken from the traditional holder and nothing is given back to them. This has especially been seen when we had meetings with our stakeholders, like, where you go to villages, collect information on textiles, on artifacts. Now in textiles, what people do, a particular weaving pattern, a design. Some fashion designer goes there, speaks to those people nicely, okay, discusses, and they take the same motif that these people have been using, then put it in their design, and then they would sell it for lakhs. Okay, but what does the artisan who shared that design get? Nothing. Probably doesn't even know that it happened. Okay, so this is one of the unethical ways of using the information. So all these things we need to know. So the capacity building, and when I am saying this, sometimes it happens knowingly, sometimes it may happen unknowingly. So if it is happening unknowingly, such workshops and awareness things would work. Okay, then inclusion of these ethical aspects in the curriculum of educational courses, that is also very important. Okay, like when you are doing PhD in IKS, or your intention is to work further on the matters of handling traditional knowledge, or compiling traditional knowledge, or creating or monetizing traditional knowledge, then this should be part of your research methodology course. Okay, you must know what is the right way of doing it and what is the ethical way of doing it. Sorry. And the last thing about the awareness and education, in a way, recognizing the people who have this knowledge holders is also a way of, popularizing traditional knowledge. Okay, due appreciation and award for knowledge and holders and providers is very important. In the next slide, I have given some examples. We know many of these people. Nanammal is one of the oldest persons who practices yoga. You may have seen on the internet several of the asanas. I mean, she can perform it better than a 5-year-old. So she's that good, and she's that well-versed in this. So recognizing that a person of her age has been a practitioner throughout her life and a staunch believer in the Indian knowledge system, that is important. Lakshmi Kuti, Tulasi Gowda, they have been awarded Padma Shri. Okay, so and I mean, Tulasi Gowda has performed has got the Padma Shri. Lakshmi Kuti is a person who is from the Kani tribe. She specializes in snake bites, and she has herbal formulations, know-how of herbal formulations of over 500 herbal formulations, and she treats people from her village. Okay, these are all people who have got this knowledge from their forefathers, their mothers, their parents, and they continue to practice it for the benefit of society, which is a very important recognition for us, and that is to understand that this is an important way to applaud traditional knowledge that is currently being practiced in the country. Now, I will just give you some procedural aspects of, what is the prior informed consent form, so that you all understand that when you go to collect such information, what are the things that you need to keep in mind. Okay, prior informed consent form will be a recorded return form, wherein you will be taking all information of the knowledge holder, including the name, their age, their parents, their community, all those details, so they can be correctly identified later. The willingness to share the information, and for what purpose. So you need to ask them, are you willing to share this information? I am going to do this with this. So are you okay with it? Do you want to keep it confidential? Do you want to share it with some person who wants to commercialize this? All this information should be asked and properly recorded. Okay, and this should be declared by the knowledge holder. So if you're doing it in a video, audio, video, visual, he would say it. So that is in the form of recorder. But in the case you're taking a signature from him, all these things should be properly recorded on paper and signed by him. Also, the person who is recording it, that is from the recording organization, that is also important. That person must also affix the signature. Only then the PIC form is complete. Also, you must explain to them so as to make them understand that in case they're sharing their information, what kind of access benefit sharing possibilities exist. I'll give you some of the examples of access benefit sharing which have been implemented by the National Biodiversity Authority, just to give you an idea. This would help you to convince the person to share the knowledge. Okay. In addition to that, you should have an explanatory note. Okay, that it is a voluntary consent. The record will be available. See, whatever you record, you will have to share it with them also. You can't take away the copy with you and keep it with yourself. So you have to share it with them in a language that they understand. Then you must explain to them what are the pros and cons of full or partial disclosure. Also, one important aspect is often they feel cheated because we have a lot of this information that is already recorded. Okay, once it is recorded, it is like prior art information. So in case there is some information that they are sharing which is not commercially viable, they would feel cheated. They would say that we have shared the information with you, but you haven't given me anything. So that also should be explained to them that if the information may or may not be commercially viable, that is for you to check out. Okay. And then you have due acknowledgement on further validation, value addition, including publication. That also you must explain to them that it can be done. Okay. And it is left to them once you explain all these things, whether they want to share the information with you or not. Now, challenges in implementing the PIC, you may have difficulties. I'm putting these out because these are challenges you will face when you actually go to the ground, okay? It will be difficult to understand who is the community leader. There may be disputes among the members. So for all of this, you will have to sit down, take some time, spend some time with them to understand. So there could be an interface between the lack of understanding as to who is the community leader. There may be a difference of opinion as to who is the knowledge holder and who is the practitioner. See, a knowledge holder is a person who has know-how of that information, but he need not necessarily be a practitioner. Okay, so who has a better claim? Are they willing to come to an understanding amongst themselves and convey that to you? All these things are important. Okay. Then when you talk about bordering communities, both of them have that knowledge. So both of them can claim benefit. So when you go for prior informed consent, you will have to see whether there are other people who are owners or custodians of the knowledge. You may have difficulties in obtaining signature, as I mentioned to you. And this has also been observed that once commercialization becomes imminent, suddenly you will have a whole set of people coming to you saying that, no, this information is also mine. You have to take my permission also. I also need to get benefit. So in this case, you will have to take more time to understand whether they actually have a benefit over the information or no. And most importantly, a PIC can be retracted. They may give a permission to you today with a certain understanding, but tomorrow they may take it back. So again, you will have to respect that. So just to sum up the things, that is for responsible documentation and utilization of traditional knowledge, you will have to have empathy, equality, and a sense of partnership. Okay. So what are the important components? Free and prior informed consent, acknowledgement, access, and benefit sharing. So all these terms and conditions should be in mutual understanding and mutual agreement with the knowledge holder or the knowledge practitioner you're taking the information from. I have put some examples on the side of the slide. This Masterac, which is a herbal remedy for mastitis, and this Vermibet, which is a broad spectrum of anthelmintic for animals. Both of them have been commercialized by the National Innovation Foundation, which I told you helps grassroots innovation, also innovators from the different tribal communities. So this is one of the achievements of commercialization, which they have also, it has also reached the community themselves. So these are some of the examples which you will also find on the National Biodiversity Authority site. So there is an Indian researcher. She had access to some of the ethnomedicinal knowledge from the Siddhi community. She conducted PhD work, but she also acknowledged this to the and took the necessary permission from National Biodiversity Authority. She consulted with Gujarat SPV, approved, and she agreed, that is through the agreement that is necessary, that the findings of the research will be given to the NBA and any commercialization benefit will go back to the community itself. Another example is a cosmetic that has been created by the L'Oreal from the Glycyrrhiza glabra plant, and as a part of their access benefit sharing, they paid upfront fee for accessing the biological resources. Another example is the Hindustan Unilever Limited. They use certain plants for fast-moving consumer products, and again, they paid an upfront fee to the National Biodiversity Authority for access to these plants. I told you both things matter, the access to genetic resources as well as utilizing the traditional knowledge. Okay. I have put some complexities also of sharing benefits. I'm putting all these things because this is as such still a very nascent, untouched area. So when you go to the ground, you may tell me that you spoke about benefit sharing. Is it that easy? No, it is not that easy. There are complexities associated. You may face challenges even during benefit sharing. Sometimes you may get a knowledge which is distinct, but you don't know who is the owner of it. Then there may be, it is possible that it is distinct, but there will be limited users with limited monetary value and benefit. So now you don't know whether you want to provide access benefit sharing, you really want to commercialize it. All those things also have to be understood. Then it is distinct and associated with a depleting natural resource. Now here comes the ethical conundrum. Should you further use it, cause it to further get depleted and completely extinct? That's a question you need to answer. Then knowledge providers impede percolation of benefits to the knowledge holders or producers. Again, you will have to see which is more important, they maintaining the information with them or you sharing it for the benefit of society. There are several benefit claimers, intermediaries, then who does the benefit go to? Then fixing the contribution of share to the various deserving parties. That may be obscure, that may need a lot of interactions to understand to whom you should give. Okay? Ownership of resource and the knowledge are distinct and not integrable. So this is a point where you have the tribal communities which are maybe borders. So the resource belongs to someone, but the knowledge belongs to someone else. So again, it becomes complex as to how to share the benefit sharing. Lastly, I would just like to go at some potential good practices when you talk about the prior informed consent and ABS. It is good to have good governance and institutional structures. So institutional structures wherein you have put in together a committee, some sort of committee which would be looking into the aspects of collection and dissemination of such information. They should have maybe punitive provisions in case there is a breach of contract, and also the explicit roles and responsibilities of the person who is collecting, utilizing, and disseminating the information. All that should be defined so that you can fix responsibility in case something goes wrong. Another important thing is sustainable usage of genetic resources. So maintaining the characteristics of the ecosystem, natural habitats. This is a good practice. Distribution of income generated at all levels to all actors. I told you there could be several stakeholders who are the actual benefit claimers. So you must see to it that everybody gets it. Then mandating research papers on TK to upload PIC at the stage of review. There are examples that I have put from other countries. For instance, the French aromatic company used native plants for fragrance, and they purchased fixed quantity of dried roots, okay, and shared 25% benefits with the local communities, and offered to develop a manual on good practices for cultivation, so on and so forth. So this slide I have put as global best practices, where you can find information on how to ethically handle, collect, and create mechanisms for access and benefit sharing. This is there. I will, if whosoever is interested, I can share the necessary link for you to see. One of the ways that such global practices can be implemented in, say, universities or institutions would be to explore the possibility of constituting, say, an institutional TK ethics committee, like you have ethics committee for handling all these matters. That would help in putting in together a manual for collecting the information and also doing what needs to be done after that is used and commercialized. Okay. So I close my presentation with what we want to achieve. Primarily ethical documenting, mandatory prior informed consent, sharing recorded information. See, we have to give back what we take. So sharing the recorded information knowledge give us sustained livelihood, facilitate that, fair and equitable benefit sharing, conservation of habitat, and create models for sharing knowledge to third parties. Thank you very much for your patient listening. I close my presentation with this. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Vijay. Very elaborate and nice presentation. I think you might have clarified all the doubts that the participants might have had. There is one question. I'll first take up the questions in the chat box, and then we can take questions from the participants. How will the person collecting the oral traditional knowledge know that the knowledge provided by the knowledge holder already exists in documented traditional knowledge?
Yeah, so this is, see, that's what I told you, this possibility exists. So when you give the prior and take the prior informed consent, you will have to tell the person that such a possibility exists. What you will have to do to find out whether it is already present in some, that is a work that is When you go back and search literature references, you will find that. Okay, so this is something that the researcher has to do by through literature references or searching to see whether that knowledge is often known. I can tell you in terms of Ayurveda, Unani, or folk medicine, it is often found there is significant overlap between the information that is there in the text and what the information maybe a folk medicine, that is a folk practitioner, will have. Why is that? Because at some point of time, maybe that information has been transferred to someone, and through that, that information has got different. Sometimes it is different also, because due to the local habitat, the person may have used their own knowledge, changed the plant or something. But yeah, there can be significant overlap, and the researcher has to see to it that this particular information, it will be the responsibility of the researcher, basically. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Vijay. And in fact, one another complexity that is there is that considering that people might have migrated and that the knowledge might be the same across different regions within the country is also a possibility. So only once you collect the information and put it into a database which is structured and searchable, you would be able to find the similarities or the distinctness of any of the knowledge. There's one more question. Suppose research scholar has undertaken study related to documentation of traditional practice, but practitioner has not given consent for publishing the information, still reveal their secret. Okay. In such situations, research scholar cannot include it in publication, whether this condition becomes systematic bias.
See, systematic bias now, you have to understand that you have taken the knowledge from someone, okay? And it is a prerogative of the person whether he wants it published, whether he or she wants it published or no. So that is why this aspect of prior informed consent right at the beginning becomes important. If you had taken the prior informed consent in the beginning, when you had even before starting your research, you would have known whether the person wants to share it or no. So it would have been at your level, you could have decided whether you want to go ahead with the research or not. Okay. So we will have to respect that the ownership of the information lies with the knowledge holder. Okay. So it would be best if you understand these aspects right at the beginning of your research. It would not be, although, ethical for you to publish it when the person has not given you prior informed consent. Thank you.
Thank you. One another question along the lines is, please let me know if a traditional medicine utilized for curing an ailment that does not cover in medical council of allopathy, siddha, etc. And this practice of traditional medicine comes to court of law. Can the approach through TKDL help to overcome this conflict and protect the medicine? I think we may have to ask the person to explain the question. Piyush, would you like to call upon Gopinath ji so that he can clarify the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Gopinath ji, can you please?
Gopinath ji, could you please ask your question?
I think he's no longer connected. He did come. He has an audio issue, he writes.
Yeah.
Oh, he has an audio issue, ma'am.
We can take him later.
We can take on Seshu ji.
Evening, ma'am. Today I want to ask one question. Actually, I want to work on this causal. Previously, there is one community is there. In Andhra Pradesh, they are going to call it as the Asari community. They are prepared by the, this is as the home skill industry. And they sell that one to all the peoples. But nowadays, such a peoples are not there. And the causal is made more commercial nowadays. If I want to work on this medicinal values of this causal and how it was affected to the eyes, if I want to study on this one, or if I want to publish any scientific journals on this one, to whom I am going to take the consent from them. Why? Because it is widely available and it is so many places it is available, and even different types of literature is also it is available. But any particular person is not responsible to hold this entire knowledge. In such a case, how to approach and how to this one. Thank you very much.
So do you think there is some holder of knowledge, as you understand, that there's some representative of the committee, the particular community is still around, that you need to take permission from? The point is this, from what you say, it appears to have become a very general, public domain information rather than a closed information. All the matter that we were referring to right now is more or less the kind of information that is restricted to a certain, set of people. But the kind of information that you are talking about is probably, almost to the extent of codified information, wherein almost everybody is already aware of the information. So I would like to understand what is the reason or why you feel that you need to take permission from someone, or you are aware of some person who is, the holder of that kind of information.
Actually, the problem is there is a community is there. No? They are called it as dasari, and they are preparing that one, and that is their livelihood also.
Okay.
Once upon a time, in around 50, 100 years back.
Okay.
But this knowledge is now available for all the peoples. But such a peoples are not there nowadays.
So yeah. So
but the community is there in government registration records. That caste is there. That community is there.
Yeah, in a way, it's a good thing that you're thinking that, you see, when a researcher is looking to do some research or something, now this can also help the community in a way, because you will be working on something that they already have, right?
Yes, ma'am. Just we want to add the medicinal values and scientific values of that sample. That's all.
But
that's why our intention.
You are saying that the community is there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can I?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yeah. Yeah, Seshaji, there are two contexts to this. One, what Vijay has said, which is, already available information in the public. So you're using disclosed information and you're trying to validate it and then publish your research. Okay, that is one aspect of it. The other thing is you're also kind of saying that, the community is still there. One needs to understand that not all codified knowledge will have all the information of a particular formulation. Say, for example, especially the oral traditional knowledge, we know that they don't disclose all the information. So the community may still be, having that, a confidential part of the information, maybe the process of, preparing that formulation or some key, information such as the amount of the ingredients and so on. Okay. So you may have to go back to the community to gather that information if you want to do a proper research. Otherwise, based on whatever is the disclosed information, you will be, it will be more of a trial and error to arrive at whatever the community has already developed. So when we are talking of this, there are two contexts. One is the traditional knowledge, the other one is the material. The traditional knowledge is what we have addressed, that you have to go back to the community, seek their permission, get full knowledge, and then, take their permission to do whatever you want. The other thing is, if in case there is enough information already available in the public domain, but you still want to do any kind of research, you can go back to them in terms of the materials. Okay. So then yet again, the Biological Diversity Act will come into play. And I think that is where Vijay had already elaborated the provisions of the Biological Diversity Act.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Vijay, there is a question, as your previous scenario where the knowledge holder has not given consent to publish, but he has shared the secret, whether we can practice that without publishing.
So even for practicing, you would need the permission of the knowledge holder. Okay. So if he is giving you permission to practice without publishing, then you can go ahead. You need the explicit consent of the knowledge holder.
Please enlighten any journal information on publication of IKS research other than iks.gov.in website, if any.
And offhand, I can tell you there is an Indian Journal of Traditional Knowledge, which is published from one of the CSIR laboratories. So I can give you the link to that, but there are several other publications which do have related information. You also have, journals which publish on Ayurveda, Unani, and medicines, herbal and folk medicines. It would take some time, but we can share that information.
Piyush, we can take the other page.
Can we take question, ma'am, from the audience?
Yes.
Namaste, Surajji. Could you please ask your question?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Ma'am, I have one, like what say, a disruptive question, we can say it out. Is there a concept called rediscovery in ITK? For instance, say, suppose a community is there, they have been practicing some process and they have left out. The entire community has moved out of the business. But suddenly a researcher is tracing back the old literature, say it's maybe any classical text, and he is taking all efforts. His institution is investing into making it as a possibility, bringing back that particular process. So will it become the part of that community or the researcher?
Yeah, as you say, this is a deceptive question. But see, are you trying to say that the community is no longer interested?
The community is no longer practicing it.
No longer practicing, yeah. So, you have heard of patent people having patents, but they don't practice it, but yet, maintain ownership over it. So that could be the case. The community may not want to practice due to certain reasons, okay? Whatever social or economical or whatever reasons that they have for which they do not continue to practice. But as far as the ownership goes, it still lies with them. So if you wish to pursue, I think you must talk to them, and in case they are willing to share the information with you and just hand it over to you, then you may go ahead with the explicit consent of the community.
Can I ask a continuous question to your statement, ma'am? For suppose, like, say after 100 years, we know the entire TKDL has taken efforts to document certain aspects. So after out of the blue, I find one literature very curious to me as a researcher. I'm taking it up and I'm going to the search of the community to get consent. But I'm not able to find a person at all or any representative or even a single practitioner in that particular process. In that case, so there is no representative per se, but still I'm going to make all the efforts to bring that particular hint into a reality. Because entire TKDL document cannot be taken as such as an proof because it's not a scientifically validated. So if I'm taking the efforts, then won't I be eligible to get the credits?
Yeah, see, this is codified knowledge you're talking about, right?
Okay, so since it is codified in TKDL means I can't do further research.
Yeah, you can.
No,
You can
do.
Like a publication, you're working more on two. Or how does incremental research take place? You have one publication, you have taken some information from it, you think you can do better than that research, or take it in some other direction or some other application. You can.
Okay, so I have to build on it, not bring back it.
The same thing doing research, research itself means you have to build on it. So if you're doing the same thing, that is not research. So obviously, whatever you do over and above whatever is already known, I'm sure that is.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for some clarity on it.
Yeah, Suresh, I just want to clarify, most of our ancient texts, if you look at it, it's already kind of codified in itself. So, that's the reason, because they are all like thousands of years old, perhaps, and we look for commentaries to help us understand that knowledge. So when the commentaries are made, they don't become owners of the knowledge, they go back. It's more of, understanding what could have happened in those days. So that particular, as Vijay just clarified, that particular knowledge still belongs to as a general heritage, whatever is already codified. But in case of any newer innovations, maybe you're developing a new process based on your research, or one of the ingredient has already become extinct and you're finding a alternate for that. So this is a new line of research that you can do. And whatever is novel and inventive, you will be able to claim your rights to that particular invention.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the additional clarity.
To this, when you're talking about this, where you don't know who the person who is the owner, this sort of discussions have been going at the WIPO forum also, I told you, right? that there is an instrument that they are having for protection of TKA. So one of the main things of discussion there is who is the beneficiary, especially in the context of India when you talk about codified knowledge and so much information that we have. We understand that the beneficiary is the nation itself, okay, not a particular person or a particular community. So in that way, if you see, this is national heritage, as Dr. Satyagiri said. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarity, ma'am.
No, ma'am, I don't see any other digital hands. So I can request Anil ji if she can explain regarding the assessment which will be happen tomorrow. Namaskar, Anil ji. Yes, thank you.
Am I audible, Yoshi? Good evening, all. So, with regard to the assessment that we are going to have tomorrow, so we'll have multiple choice questions, and Piyush ji will prepare a Google Sheet for that. And the participants, they may submit their responses to the questions that will be presented, and assessment will be made on the basis of the answers that will be made, and they will be the candidates who will qualify as per the prescribed mandate, and they will be given the certificates. So this is all about the assessment that will be going to happen tomorrow. Thank you.
Anil, you'll have to also give the timeline. When will they get to know about the assessment? By next Friday, or do you want to announce both the workshops together?
That we'll disclose tomorrow, ma'am. So we'll let the participants know when they will get the results of their assessment. We'll inform them after. Before the assessment will be presented to them.
Right. Sure. Vijay, there's one more question, maybe, because you're still kind of having a little bit of time. Maybe you can take that one last question from. Should I read it out? Please let me know if a traditional medicine utilized for curing an ailment that does not cover in medical counts. No. I'm sorry, I think I missed that. Yeah, just a question. Since you mentioned about building trust is crucial part to ensure participation of everyone. But what if within a community, people won't allow a particular group, maybe women, for example, to speak? How can we ensure that collective interaction would be nearer to representative? Very relevant.
Very relevant and very challenging, and this is one of the things that we have heard from all the groups that have gone on the ground to collect information. It is often there is some sort of bias, not only in terms of gender, but also in other things in the community itself. You may have one dominant person who wishes, to portray himself or herself as the owner or custodian and doesn't let others speak. So I understand this is a challenge. How you can, a suggestion is that you go with groups. So maybe, like you can speak to people, and if there are males, females, everybody, that again gives a sense of, inclusivity. But there is nothing to force a person. Like if the community has that kind of bias within itself, you wouldn't be able to, break that bias, because you understand that that is a thing an outsider or as a third party you will not be able to do. But this is why the people there suggest that you spend some time with the community. That will help in, bridging the gap.
I think we can close now.
So, ma'am,
we'll close it for today.
We can close with a Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a very short session in terms of a lecture. We will only have, TK inspired innovations, the way forward, potential and the way forward, and then your test. So we look forward to all your active participation even tomorrow. Good night and namaste.